Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Raising Excellence, the most important 90 minutes of your day. Hello, I'm Michael, the MC and opportunity ambassador for today's show. And today's show, the title of today's show is Opening Up or Locking Down. Going to be a little controversial today, but with me today is the full crew. We got everybody. So with me is Agnishka, our psychosomatic illuminator.
Hi, everybody. I can't wait to talk about this topic.
Willow, our trauma consultant. Willow.
Willow's frozen.
Uh-oh. Okay, Dennis, our freedom facilitator.
Greetings and blessed love, beautiful people.
And we'll wait for Willow. Hold on.
And
Maybe not.
we'll wait a while.
She was there just a while
Okay,
ago.
so Dennis, do you want to kick this off and explain what this topic is and what we're going to talk about today?
Sure. So open up our lockdown. You would have been somebody blessed with absence of any form of media, not to know what's going on these days and what has been going on for the last couple of weeks and months even. And therefore, the overall question really is, what is it that life is asking from us right now? This current life situation here, with people being forced to, various degrees to stay at home, to change their ways of moving around, of even dressing up, of communicating or not with each other. Certainly there has been a huge shift in reality or in our collective perception of reality due to those, to those factors that have been pushed upon us, I guess is a way of how to say it. And, we have the privilege of having in our tiny living room people from different corners of the world chipping in and being able, even geographically, to give perspectives. You guys are in Mexico. I'm, in Central Europe. Willow is in the US. And certainly our listeners are also from all over the globe. So, I'm looking forward to feedback, to questions, and to input from our listeners from all, spectrums, because we are really, just sharing our perspective with this, and whether that is something that you can identify with, or whether you have a totally different idea and perspective on the situation. I'm sure we all are looking forward to to feedback and to a lively discussion. And so the overall question: what is life asking from us right now? And of course, my very own idea is always to look at it holistically, to look at it from a holistic perspective, and whether that is from a physical, physiological point of view, from an emotional, from an intellectual, and even from a spiritual viewpoint. What is this situation, this current situation, asking from us? On a physical level, what did this so-called lockdown ask us to do? Of course, we had to stay at home. Many people seem to be like in a fight and flight, duck and cover kind of mode. How. So on a physical level, let's say we are forced to stay at home and to lock down, to wear a mask and to be very afraid of what's going on. But is that the only level there is? Just looking at to start with from a physical level, or is there maybe something beyond that? Does it mean if we have to stay at home, lock down, cut off our face-to-face communication with other people? Is there maybe a way of seeing this from a perspective where we can actually gain, or where the fact that we are not able to do things as we used to do them, where it maybe forces us to highlight, some of the things that have been dormant and that we have not been able to appreciate even before? Does it force us to look at communication with more awareness? To look at compassion to each other.
Wait. Can you ask one question at a time, and then we can talk about it? Because
Sure.
you just asked 7 questions, and they were all good ones. But I don't know. I'm like,
Which
could I
one
put
jump out for you?
I kind of like the one where we're talking about how we can vary our behavior and adjust. I mean, that is the human condition or the human privilege. No, maybe not privilege. Privilege is a bad word these days. The human characteristic to continue to reinvent ourselves depending on what our environment throws at us. We'll adjust and we'll flip it and we'll, you know, excel.
Yeah, I would say along the lines of the idea of when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I think there's that opportunity when it comes to big problems. There's always the inverse of that, which is big opportunities. Because when people are in pain, when they've got big problems, those are things that they want to have solutions for. And so that is a tremendous opportunity. And certainly that's something that for people that are more aware, it's an incredible, tremendous opportunity, and I think that's certainly here as well.
So, well, who are these people who are more aware? Can you
That's
describe them?
us. They're us, like us.
Well, what's like us?
People like us.
We're not like each other.
Well, we're open-minded, right? We're keeping our eyes open. We're
We're not
utilizing our senses,
I
I
think
think
it's a
that,
that kind of stuff.
I love
yeah.
that, like, so the question is really, what is the lemonade, to be made out of that? And from the starting with the down to earth physiological level thing, one of the things for me was right away, wow, a tendency that I observed, that I was really getting into even before this whole story started, was to kind of focus more on whom I interacting with, and how, and what are the people, who are the people that I would like to surround myself with. So to be, at this point in my life, just be more aware of who do I work with, who do I interact with, who do I even want my children, to be exposed to. And yeah, to just pay more attention to that. So that situation from the beginning on really kind of highlighted that tendency even more. That obviously under conditions, it made it a little more difficult anyway to expose yourself to real world people. But then it kind of highlighted the fact that, wow, so if we were able to have contact with somebody, or we went out, or we saw somebody, or I met somebody, or somebody overcame the fear and the various barriers that were there, and we still would meet up and train or talk, or interact in any which way, then there was a much more there was a much higher sense of appreciation for that. And also I was able to focus more on the quality of exchange and of communication that was going on. So that would that was something right away that I could take out of the situation, like a heightened sense of awareness of the potential of human communication. Willow, how are you
Kind of
doing? I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, hi,
Yeah,
Willow.
Willow has joined us.
I'm
Yay,
doing great. My
Willow.
computer unfroze and I got dinner, so I apologize that I'm eating, but also not sorry.
Well, you just came home from a long day, so I don't blame you. Um, I think that this the current situation has really highlighted like-minded people and people who are not um, not of the same mind. I guess I don't know if that's correct.
Not of the same awareness, maybe is a better word, because I think awareness is kind of the key to the whole thing.
Yeah, awareness is a good word.
Are you saying it has highlighted? Can you repeat that again?
It has highlighted for me. It has highlighted the different type, like different thinking. Like it's almost like there are two or three different camps, and you're either in this camp or you're in that camp, and you can't be in both because there's some essential differences.
I
And
can relate to that.
I
Yeah,
think that's interesting.
it is as if the circumstances or these times are really uh, are really encouraging people to pick a side, right? And whereas before it might have been easier to kind of I'm neither here nor there. Right now we're really asked to say, okay, we that is our view. We're over here or we're over there, and it seems more difficult to to kind of tiptoe around a firm position or firm stance on the situation itself even.
Yes, and also I'm really shocked at how many people that I'm really close with are really fear driven when it comes to the face of this. You know, like we were talking. Well, we I guess that was a long time ago. We talked about that story, The Water of Life, and how the main character had to climb a mountain, but there were all these demonic screams behind him, and if he turned around, he would turn into stone. It almost feels like in our society right now there are these demonic screams behind us, and as we walk through life, everywhere we go, we kind of have to turn a blind eye or a blind ear or put wax in our ears to not hear the constant and excessive fear mongering that's happening.
And we have some lively comments already. Hi Eric, how are you doing? Glad you joined us. Eric knows the story, obviously. He says he knows that one. And he's asking us, do we know the one about the two monks?
Oh, we don't want to talk about that.
And Willow, he's glad to see you as well. He's congratulating you to your hat, and he was wondering what you're eating.
Oh, thanks. I was going for like the Tim Pool look, and I'm eating roast and potatoes that my husband cooked, which is really good.
Nice.
Thank you for asking.
And he also was congratulating Agnieszka to cutting me off during my 2 million questions. Not.
Oh, from the audience.
Good. Anyway, so
Thrown on, Dennis.
so back to the whole physical level that I see ourselves, still being in, to put light on the situation from that level. What does it mean to open up? Because we have the lockdown thing. Okay, lockdown. That's even, you mentioned that Richard, who is the founder and navigator of the course that brought us all together called Autonomy, he was comparing, the word and the vocabulary of lockdown, to a phrase that's used for in the sense of or in the word of prisons, so like a prison lockdown. So for me, it's like, okay, so they want us to lock down. So what's the contrary to that? That means to open up. So if the circumstances forcing us on one level to lock down, but if that's not really where I want to be, like what can I do to open up then? Or maybe I can see it as a challenge then. Okay, like I'm not supposed to leave the house, I'm not supposed to, I don't know, meet people, and I'm supposed to cover up my face. And so that certainly is locking down on a certain level. But how can I even overcome that and surpass that and open up? Like, how can I open up, to, sides within myself, that I might have been under lockdown.
Meditation, look inside. There's a whole world inside you, right? And you
Well, I think that's
information.
I think that's really difficult right now because there's no logic to these restrictions. Like, I'm trying to think how best to explain this. Like, in my personal experience, I've seen people who are absolutely afraid of other people going out and connecting with individuals and getting together and meeting face to face. And they try to control that, but it's perfectly okay for them to vet their friends. Their friends can come over. They can go on vacations. They can go out to eat. They can go into these crowded spaces with other people. And as long as they're wearing their little mask, it's perfectly safe. Or it's not perfectly safe. They're still upset about it, but they're still willing to do it. So I think it's really hard when there's no logic to these restrictions. So therefore, there's no logic. There's no going inside and like being logical with yourself and actually opening up and trying to figure out your own internal workings if you're faced with so much illogic rhetoric outside of yourself.
Generalize the lack of logic. If you just go, oh, okay, well that doesn't make sense, and go on, it shouldn't be that bad, right?
Yeah, well, I think it also allows you to question the people that you surround yourself with. So that if you're surrounded by people that are, believing in nonsense, then that's kind of a warning sign or a red flag to what are you doing? Because
It's hard to
maybe you
say
need to.
where do we draw the line on the nonsense, right? Like walking into a restaurant with a mask and then sitting down at the table and eating without the mask. Like where's the sense in that? And then you put the mask to go back to the bathroom, but when you're sitting at your table, that's totally cool. I don't
Well,
know.
so
That
certainly
logic sense
that's
gets a little bit
ridiculous and
I
illogical, and certainly most of the medical advice that's out there, even prior to this whole thing, has been really nonsensical in a lot of ways. And so it is that opportunity to like really ask people questions and get their true response to how they're feeling about things. I think it's one of those opportunities where people that are more informed, more aware, have the ability to demonstrate not only their intellectual capacity, but also their emotional intelligence. When it comes to like allowing people to trigger you versus being able to function in a more hostile environment, that's a challenge. And it's certainly a worthy challenge because these are things that we do need to really bring ourselves to our best self is through challenges, and asking questions and learning from situations. And so why not take this opportunity to learn some of those very difficult things that we apparently so far really haven't learned very well? Because if we were good at communicating with each other, we would probably be able to communicate
Hmm.
valid information more effectively. And the fact that we can't means that there's lessons to learn.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take it from there, and I wonder, can you relate to the notion that obviously over the last few years, even decades, on a world population scale, a growing percentage of humans of people have had the ability through the economic development of nations to travel, to have, to communicate, to meet each other, to take airplanes to the other side of the world, to physically interact and meet each other. But yet it seems that most of those interactions, have been kind of meaningless, or have been without like a deeper appreciation of the possibilities that give. And I feel that maybe this situation, in a way, forces us to give more meaning to communication, to seeing each other, to seeing each other's faces, because it does force us to kind of, look out for it. If you only see like, the little eye, the eye segment section of the face of the other, then, all of a sudden you have to try to listen to the voice, which is hard too because it's all muffled, and then, and try to read, more than before, like what kind of mood is the other one in, and what's going on. And then, of course, if you don't see people for days or even weeks or even months, then, when you basically face them again, or you have the ability to travel or to take an airplane, or, to take even just the bus, to your next village, then it obviously becomes more meaningful, because it's not just, like a given that you can do on a day-by-day basis just like that. So I feel maybe one of the lessons from this situation is also to find again deeper meaning in the possibilities and abilities that we have had in our modern world, with the technology and with the standard of living that not all but many of us have been exposed to. And that's certainly a privilege for people from the so-called developed world. And if you know about if you have lived on the other side of the world and among people who don't have those possibilities, then my observation would have been that while there was not much possibilities of traveling far and getting to know other cultures and other people, but it seems that oftentimes the communication in the close vicinity, in people of the close community, have been on a much deeper and meaningful level. And yeah, so that's one of the tendencies that I kind of can observe. How do you think about that? Anyone?
Well, I would say, like in the case of autonomy, it's been a real godsend to have a community of people that are open-minded and understanding and inquisitive and curious about what is actual truth. I think it's definitely given those of us that are in this community a much greater appreciation for each other because we've been able to provide each other with knowledgeable information about different things. We've been able to kind of scale this effort to understand what's going on by having people from all over the world, bring information to the table that allows us to much
And also
more
support.
understand.
Like
Go
think
ahead.
about the women's group and the men's group inside of autonomy. And by the way, there's another men's group tomorrow at noon Eastern, I think. Um, but the women's group, of course, meets tomorrow in the morning at 9 a.m. Even just having these little circles, right? This is so old fashioned. It's almost like autonomy is this medieval village, and we're using all of these old fashioned techniques to support each other, where age doesn't matter, and we're just completely, you know, like leaning on each other like in a proper agora.
So we're talking about the online community that is part of the 12-week online course that we all participated in called Autonomy.
Why do you want to talk about your canceled capoeira classes?
Well, yeah, that is just one of the aspects, So for me, as also, a personal trainer and a capoeira trainer, so those lockdowns that we are under currently, again, for me that mean, that pretty much I'm not allowed to teach again, and that I, at least temporarily, but then for a certain percentage also in the long term, I lose students, and the work and the months of work that I've put into preparing events and building a relationship with students, whether it's children or adults, it is seemingly lost. On the other side, it does let me appreciate the fact, and it shows that I have been able to reach them on more than just a physical level, if the relationship actually is maintained, even although there is no physical contact for weeks or even months. When they come back and return, eventually when people, lose their fear, or when it's officially allowed again, and then I see them again, or and some of them, they can appreciate through these facts, through this situation, they can seemingly appreciate more what I have been able to do with their children. Because then, for instance, the children will say, "Oh, I miss capoeira, I miss Simpson, I miss this, and I miss that." So things come up that go beyond just the physical transfer of techniques, or
But I
like a
think
workout level thing.
you should still do it online. I think that would give him continuity
Yeah,
that they
and I'm
won't
doing
lose.
that. I'm actually starting to do online classes, although I was a little hesitant because it is so much more than what I ever could transfer through a an interface based lesson. But still, I can be creative, and I can do some things I know other people have been doing and have been living on that. So I have the ability, so why not go with the flow, and engage them to that level. Even maybe that makes them even appreciate more what we can do once we see again, face to face.
Maybe do a specific capoeira set for people who sit too much in front of the TV, because that's really what people seem to be doing during this lockdown,
there's
right?
there's this commercial, like, and that's an official government commercial, and they have been spending millions on getting their side out, and that was really something else. It's basically a couple, like a older looking couple, sitting on a bed and kind of chatting about, oh, back then in 2020, our generation, and and it just came unexpectedly, and what did we do? We were heroes and rebels by doing nothing. So, and then you see them like in their younger years, like 20 years ago, together, just lying in bed and doing nothing, looking out of the window and eating like KFC fries, in a huge bucket. And so they're portraying that as the heroes. You can't be a hero without doing anything. Just stay at home and eat the garbage food, and don't do
Some
anything.
commercial like that
And
in Nicholas.
if that isn't psychological warfare, like I don't know what it is. Like
Yeah.
convincing people that by doing nothing, letting other people make your choices, and giving up all of your freedom and your ability to take care of yourself to someone else out of fear, that's heroic. That's the heroic thing to do. Like,
I literally
it
thought it was
makes
a
me
joke.
very upset.
I literally thought it was a joke, and I was waiting for them to,
Well, but that's essentially what they've been doing for centuries. That's what wars are, and that's what all these other things are. That when we think of other people on the other side of the planet that are enemies, or whether they're just the neighbors across the street, uh, it's the same psychological games that they're playing.
yeah,
And to some degree, we that's also something that we can become aware of, and we can make other people aware of as well. I think we've got to be kind of strategic about how we go about doing that. But I do think that this is kind of all everybody's fears come to life. For all the people that have been warning about all the bad things that could possibly go wrong, the time has come. It is here, and it's time to think about, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to just allow them to steer us towards eating buckets of chicken while we sit on our couch watching TV, or are we going to actually choose to be responsible and make our lives into what we want them to be, regardless of what other people in capitals around the world think we should be doing?
yeah. That
I
that
like
is.
that you
Go on,
I
Ruben.
like that you correlated it to like an actual war, because that made me think of, what do they do to the enemy in war? They tell them, or they make them out to be these monstrosities, horrific, not human people who like murder children and eat your dog, and just the most horrific things. And of course, those are the only two that I can think of. But they do the same thing with people who don't wear masks and don't stay at home. Like, people are shamed and ridiculed, and it's kind of on both sides. It's funny because in my personal life, I don't wear a mask. I don't believe in them, nor can I wear one. It's a political statement and a issue that I have in my personal life. But I will wear a face shield for work because it makes them feel better, and I do need a paycheck, so I wear it. If I have it on, I get the condescending stares and the "what is wrong with you" looks, and people talking shit about me when I walk into the bathroom, and I come back out and they're like, "Man, some people are just so stupid. They'll believe anything the government tells them." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't believe that there's a virus, or maybe I believe that there's a virus, but I don't believe anything that's on the media right now, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I'm wearing a mask because I'm at work. But if I don't wear a mask, then I get the same bullshit, like, you just want everyone to die. You have no empathy for anyone else in the world. Like, it's it's warfare. Like, people are gearing up for hating the people who don't believe or do the same things that they do.
And Agnesia, you brought up, capoeira as as a topic, and when I think about that, that to me personally, that is a prime example of how under severe lockdown, one that we might not even be able to imagine right now, much worse with lashes and people being brought across half of the world, in shackles and chains, and families being split up. They're not allowed to practice their costume, their culture, speak their language. Split families being split up and work on cane fields and God knows what. Um, under that quality of a lockdown, still back then, people have had the ingenuity to come up with something, with a culture of resistance, with a way of life, with a philosophy of life that is, that can be so positive, so life enhancing. If that's not opening up, under a severe lockdown, what is? And so I try to remind myself constantly about that, and even my students as well, those who are a little more deeper into the matter, is like, if you think that that's bad, imagine where this, this thing that we are practicing right now, that we are living, where this come from, and this came from way much worse than this. Of course, this is like a global scale thing that has never been here. But anyhow, if you imagine, the death, torture, and punishment going on a daily basis, and you still find like a spare moment where you can get together with your brethren and sistren, and make music and sing and express yourself, like on a physical level, and not only fight but play, create a game and a playful interaction with each other that also could be used, for physical survival, but there was also, a way of relieving a relief and a way of releasing your energies, like even your anger and your emotions, and leaving them out within the community, and therefore making a connection with your past, with your customs, with your culture. And well, so that is just something totally empowering to me. And of course, I'm talking about capoeira, which is an Afro-Brazilian martial art slash dance slash culture, music, dance, poetry, that is being practiced today all over the world, and which is something that I've been teaching and living. And so that gives me, tremendous hope, and encourages me to look at, how can we use, and how can we maybe even analyze things like capoeira. Have there been other things, within art, within music? Have there been, cultural expressions and modalities that have been used under, severe lockdown situations, and that helped you to maintain your sanity, and that helped to maintain a sense of community, and and that connected you to that love, within, for yourself and for others, although, there were like harsh conditions set up for you and your community. So do you know any other modalities, or do you have any other examples where people actually, overcame severe conditions of even slavery, and were able to
Yeah,
thrive?
Poland
Sorry.
was under occupation for 300 years between Russia, Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Prussia. And for nearly 300 years, we maintain our culture and our language in all three of the sections of the country. So, so that means that generations of people, like grandma and daughter and granddaughter and great granddaughter, they may never have known free Poland in their entire lifetime, yet they still maintained the clothing, the songs, the poems, you know what I mean, the language, that developed the language, continue to develop the language. I think that's quite impressive.
I think there's also the idea that the rich and powerful basically get what they want, and so what is reflected in the outside world is really what
Idiot,
they
that what?
what they're demanding.
Why did
And
everybody
so to some
stop?
degree, that does suggest that the rich and powerful really do have a very limited awareness of what is possible and what humanity is capable of. And to me, that's another whole opportunity in which essentially they're demonstrating their lack of awareness. And for those of us that are aware, it's a huge opportunity, huge opportunity.
And we just got another comment from Selmardida Raisin. Sorry if I wasn't able to pronounce it.
It's Zelmardita. That's my
Zel
sister-in-law. Hi.
Zelmardida. Hi there. Thank you for joining us. And she said Christianity, and that is super interesting to me, because I just was reminded of another form of religion, which is called candomblé, which I have a little knowledge about also through the practice of capoeira. And I would say yes, definitely, spiritual practices, those have been in the crossfire of the powers that don't know, that are at the moment seemingly on some kind of level, because also those are powerful manifestations that bring people together, that unite people. And I'm even like broadening up the scope, because there's many different ways of where that people see the divine or name the divine. And I personally, I can find the divine in everywhere in and around me. But I tremendously respect people who choose one way of organized religion, and who can find access to that divinity within themselves and around us in their world through that. And I definitely would agree, Christianity as well as other forms of religion are ways of uniting people, are ways of building culture, and are ways of overcoming the divide and conquer that we all under that spell.
I watched a presentation by Ron Paul this past weekend. He did a conference of some sort in conjunction with the Mises Institute, and what he was talking about was LBJ. And, LBJ was one that he was a powerful politician that essentially had an incredible thirst for power to the point that he made it all the way to the president of the United States. But when he finally made it to the president of the United States, that thirst for power got him to such a point that practically everybody hated him, including his own party. And they essentially booted him out of the White House early because he was such a pain in the ass to everybody, and he really died a very miserable death. Soon after he was, kind of he relinquished all the power and really had nothing. But to me, this is one of those circumstances. It's an example of a circumstance where, this pursuit of power that a lot of these politicians and tyrants and all these people that are making edicts and trying to force people to do things, when they finally get what they want, it's going to be an empty present. They're going to find out that it's nothing. It is absolutely zero of what they thought it was going to be. And that is, again, is another opportunity for us, because we've got to prepare for that, because it doesn't get much further than, world government when it comes to like controlling everything.
Yeah.
And to some degree, they are like the most irresponsible body on the planet, is like the world government people that are basically not answerable to anybody. But in that case, even when they gain all that power, there's really nothing there. There's nothing there. And so that's something that we really need to, be aware of and project that in the relationships that we have. Because I do think that, like, even in the opportunities where relationships are strained, having decent, loving relationships are going to be even more powerful and apparent and useful and, valuable to people that understand that value.
That's a huge lesson in itself, and it made me think of the difference between power and force. So it seems what they are looking for or what they're using is force, but if they would focus on power, and if they would, if they would look within, then they would see that true power comes from within. So if you can harness that and find that true source of power which is within each one of us, then we wouldn't have to force anything on anybody, and we could be just happy and balanced and in harmony with ourselves as we are right now, and we wouldn't have to force anybody to do anything.
Then we wouldn't be generating so much money, so much profit. We have to be generating profit, Dennis. Come on. Get with the program.
Well, that's kind of a misnomer, because really the value that we can provide to each other is greater than the money could ever recognize. And that's kind of one of the other things that could be a lesson that people could learn, is that, chasing money, chasing an illusion of money, and really kind of a religion of money. And certainly for the people that are spiritual, that's certainly something they should be, really pondering, is like, what is my religion, and what are the extents of it? Because money is a religion, as far as I'm concerned. And for those that are putting it over and above the harm of other people, they're mistaken, and unfortunately that's going to boomerang, and it's not going to be good for them, in the long run. And it's just like when parents force children to do things they don't want to do, all they do is create resentment, and more hardship for themselves and for their children. That's not positive, but that's what's going on. We're creating more and more trouble, but it's the fact that people allow it to happen, people that accept it to happen, let it happen in their own lives, that it's perpetuated.
The question,
have to be.
Yeah, the question is really how you position yourself, to be it money. And I know I made a case a few minutes ago for religion, for organized religion, for Christianity specifically, and I would stand by that. Even comparing it to whether it's religion or whether it's money, or even capoeira as well, something that I touched upon earlier. It is like, if those are tools, and then it depends on you how you position yourself to it. And I can totally see how I use how I interact with money, and how I look at Christianity, at Candomblé, this Afro-Brazilian form of religion that I mentioned earlier, and how that is beneficial, for individuals, but also for groups, and how it uplifts people, how it brings them together. But then, of course, I see also, the mayhem that can come with it, and how it can be destructive and can be used to, divide and conquer people just the same way. So in the end, it all, loops back to the internal relationships that we are able to build with those things around us, and with the people around us as well. So it really all depends how you relate to that. And I myself, I've never really been paying much attention to money, and I didn't give it much value, but I'm learning how to I'm relearning, I'm reevaluating my view on that. And it's really an interesting experience, even to see it with different eyes, and to see, that, oh wow, this is just a form of energy, and I can use that to do good, and I can use that to reach the goals that I have, which is basically, connecting people, bringing people together from different walks of lives, and it can be very helpful. So I'm kind of, seeing how I can shift my own perception of those things, and I'm having, some really interesting experiences with it lately.
Have you read that book by Sarah McCrum?
Yes, I love it actually. Love money, money loves you, I believe. I really do enjoy reading and rereading this book, and I can just recommend it to everybody.
Yeah.
Anyone, Michael, earlier you mentioned the emotional side of things, and I was just wondering what kind of experiences you guys have had in the last weeks and months on the emotional side. We've been told to lock down on that side as well. Did you have any experiences of actually opening up, of finding some, digging up some gold, finding something valuable on the emotional sides under the current measurements?
Yeah, you don't have to wear a mask at the farmer's market.
Yeah, I think that's just reflective of, like, where there's entrepreneurs, there's basically just, a complete marketplace, of ideas and products and services. And certainly people are free to do what they want. Where you've got people, essentially forcing other people to wear masks, those are usually those multinational corporations and government organizations that are essentially the ones that are, utilizing their ability to force people to do stuff. And that is going to boomerang in the end for them, because, it's just like, why is it that, like, all the businesses and corporations in the world are only like 100 years old or less? Well, it's because that's kind of the system that was set up, and now that it's, like, kind of gone through its motions, it's basically teetering on the edge of extinction at this point. And they're trying to push their agenda to the forward, but all they're doing is cutting their own throats when it comes to people's understanding, because in the end, I don't think many people really like where we're going, and the fact that it's, this is kind of the predictive programming, because in a lot of cases, this is what has been in our media for the last probably 100 years as well, has been this kind of story where, it's a totalitarian regime planet wide. But I do think that the reality is this is no way to live. This is no way to live for humans. And there is a much better way that is much more productive, that is much more valuable. And this is our opportunity to actually identify that.
Very much it seems as if they, while putting masks on our faces, have been dropping their own, and more things have been, revealed and are revealing themselves, and forcing people again to look at it. I guess for some of us it has been an open secret, and it has been, in the last few years and even decades, been much more out in the open, and it wasn't even hidden so much, the agenda and the things that they have been pushing, and the nature of the system that we're living in as well, in this reality. But now it becomes more and more difficult for people to, not see what's actually going on. And that in itself is an interesting thing. And it's sometimes frightening to me to see the amount of people that still will adhere and still will comply and just go with it, and, and think that,
Well,
oh,
what we've covered a few different times is this idea of consistency. And, the people that are consistently lying, the people that are consistently cheating, the people that are consistently screwing people over, that's going to come back to them at some point. The people that are consistently, sharing and loving and taking care of each other and you know, being concerned for each other, those people are going to get a payoff, and that is if we understand how to leverage that, how to communicate that. And, for the most part, word of mouth, like as a communication method, is a very powerful tool that has, to some degree been occulted by the system, but it is one at which when people develop a trusting relationship, it is very powerful. And that's certainly something else that we've got to, acquaint ourselves with.
It's interesting because I study like ancient stories, lore, legends from all these different countries and stuff. And there are two prevailing elements, right? So one is love, continue, and that is everywhere, help each other. The person who is good hearted wins, the pure hearted, the kind hearted, and all of that. But then there's this other narrative that's on top of that, sort of superimposed on top of that. It's like, don't be too good, don't give away all your money, or you're going to die poor, and all of that. And it always, like, whenever it shows up, it sounds like an admonition, like, da da da, do this or that, do this or that. You know what I mean? And that's what's, there's like a dual dynamic going on in. And I always felt that the other one seemed to, like, the scarcity one, the one, oh, don't help other people or there won't be enough for you, seemed fake to me, seemed made up. Like, of course there'll be enough for you. There's always enough. Everything is good. You can't help too much, but it still prevails.
yeah, that comes into the, scarcity mindset and thinking. And the question is our universe, truly unlimited? Is there unlimited currency? And Eric was saying, he was referring to the money talk earlier, that it shouldn't be called currency but resistance. Is there unlimited potential within all of us? Is there unlimited growth potentially? And I just watched a super interesting movie, I'm going to share it with you later, on permaculture, that highlights the work of several really amazing human beings who even set up like closed loop systems of energy, renewable energy. And wow, it was just amazing. And the importance to grow, I believe. I'm sorry if I misplayed it, but it's something like that, and it can be watched for free too. So I recommend that. And that has been one of my ways of keeping my emotional side balanced as well, is to find encouraging and to find positive news, people, things to do that uplift me even on that level as well. And going back to the emotional aspect of the lockdown, or of how to open up on an emotional level, I find that being restricted in the amount and in the amount of people that I'm supposedly interacting with or allowed to interact with, it forces me, or it encourages me to look at those relationships that I have with the mostly close family members, and to reevaluate those, and to see how I could improve upon them, and what I can do to further them, and to figure out where a few problems, and what can I do, because in a way I would oversee them, or I would be more focused on other people as well, and therefore maybe lack some focus on those relationships. However, if they reflect my general state of development on an emotional level, then that's an opportunity right there to see where the next task is, where the next lesson is for me to learn on that level, while only having to focus on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that are very close to me, and not, losing my focus by, interacting with dozens of people on a daily basis. How has that been for you? Has that bring more trouble or more clarity, having to, reduce the amount of people that you can physically interact with and see?
I think it depends on the day. Like, being able to reduce the amount of people that you have to focus on can be a really liberating thing, especially if you've been around people who are kind of bringing you down, draining you. They don't respect your boundaries. It can be a wonderful thing, but like when the first lockdown started happening, um, almost all of my friends just kind of they were scared, and so they stopped hanging out, and that was a really difficult thing for me because these were not people that I wanted to distance myself from. They were actually people who were part of my support system. Oh, excuse me, I just had some really good cake, so um,
Thanks for sharing.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, I had to share it. It was really good.
You open up to a cake.
I do. I open up to food. I'm a foodie. Um, yeah, I think it really just depends. I've had both circumstances where like it's been really good for me and it's been really recharging and helpful and pretty easy. Like once I cut some certain people out of my life or set boundaries in a way that they couldn't really cross without being assholes about it. Um, my life got a lot easier. But also that means that once if your support system gets knocked out for whatever reason, you don't really have those face-to-face interactions that you do need. We're all social creatures and we do need these interactions. And you'll find yourself like opening up a little bit too much to the cashier at the grocery store, or unloading on someone else who doesn't really know the situation or is in a position to help, which can make your life a little bit more difficult.
What about, moving upwards? What about the intellectual level or the level of the mind? How did that, did the current situation and the lockdown impact, your mind, your mental well-being, so to say? Because it's certainly, that lockdown thing is a holistic thing as well. They're trying to lock us down on each of those levels, and that's certainly something, we all can feel. And we just touched upon the whole propaganda thing with that with that little movie that the government here put out. And I think there's many levels to that alone, to the predictive programming, to creating the kind of mindset, even through schooling. And we extensively covered that in the autonomy course and are very aware of that. So is there, how have you been able to open up and to make moves contrary to the to the fashion of the moment of locking down our minds?
I mean, personally, there was a lot of anger, I would say, because when you start caging a person, you don't allow them to work for their own money so that they can buy their food, or take care of you. Don't allow someone to take care of themselves. It produces a lot of stress and anxiety, which for some people comes out as like straight depression. Some people it's sadness, other people it's anger, and then some people go through a bunch, like the whole, they just go through anger, sadness, and then depression. For me, I kind of got to the angry phase where I was just pissed off at not really anyone in particular, just everyone, to be honest. Like it wasn't like any particular person, and it wasn't every single person in the world. It was just I'm angry. And that opened up a door where it's like, okay, why does this make me so angry? It makes me feel helpless. Okay, that's the feeling I'm trying to avoid. And throughout the entire current situation, I've been really battling with the anxiety and the fear and the reactiveness to feeling helpless. And okay, that's a normal feeling, and it's not a good feeling. Where have I felt this in the past? Okay, let's take care of that. Let's deal with those emotions. now what can we do about it in the future? Is there something you want to do about it? And that's kind of opened, but it was a pathway where it, like, instead of just shutting down that feeling, I had to become open to it and say, you know what, this is what I'm feeling. This is exactly how I'm feeling and how it's coming out, and I kind of understand myself a little bit better. Let's figure this out, figure it out a little bit more.
It seems to have, invited me also to actually recognize, okay, well, I can't go out or I can't invite people. Or I can invite them, but but most of them won't come, for training and for class. So what else is there to do? And luckily I didn't have like a lack of of ideas, and stuff that I started and couldn't finish. So I was focusing on those things, and more like, I don't know, like writing and or even like readjusting, or working on the whole coaching thing that I'm offering as well. It's like, okay, I can't go out, I can't meet people in person. Okay, let me focus on the online coaching aspects. And I spend days and weeks and many hours like researching what's going on, and collecting the scientific background and the numbers and the perspectives from people from all over the world, and use that to make up my own mind and my own perspective on the situation. But then I realized that other people did not even take, the fraction of time and of energy to figure out what's going on. And they wouldn't have the privilege of, knowing people like you from all over the world, and getting their opinion and their feedback. So it's like, oh, how can I use that input of time and effort that I've made, and maybe even help others, because I'm hearing, oh, I'm so afraid of this thing, I can't go out and this and that. So it's like, oh, so you're afraid, so you feel, okay, maybe one way of overcoming that fear is to confront it. Would you like to have a talk? Or, let's do, a little half an hour coaching or hour coaching, and then maybe I can alleviate the fear of of the virus. But then, there's other things too, that are kind of disturbing as well. But anyway, so it's like, I was like encouraged to still find ways and to explore the things that I can work on, and that I can push forward, and that I can explore even under the current circumstances. And even the books, there have been like a bunch of books like on the shelf that I haven't been able to, read. So I'm focusing more on that. Or I took a course, like another online course, and I'm going through that, and I find more time to focus on things like that. And that's kind of like how I have been able to overcome the challenge on a mental level, of basically, improving my knowledge and my ability to to cut through, and even to to make an income as well, even in those times, because we certainly have opportunity to do that. And maybe the situation is asking for us also to shift and to adjust the way how we interact on an intellectual level with each other.
Yeah, one thing I'd mention is that there are steps to make improvements, and certainly one of the first steps is just this idea of outrage. Step one is outrage. When something goes wrong, there's a problem, whatever. There's essentially that outrage stage, but then it moves beyond that. It's into like seeing clearly, like being able to distinguish what's real versus what's not real, and then be able to actually make decisions about what you're going to do next. Unfortunately, a lot of the society has been ingrained with and conditioned with the idea that there's just another outrage of the week every week for the rest of their lives, and they never get out of that outrage stage. But there again is like one of the roles that we've got to play as aware people is we've got to take advantage of the knowledge and awareness that we have, and really be the example for other people, because we can live a great life. I think there's nothing stopping us from leading a great life, that we can choose ourselves regardless of the situation. And that in itself is something that's not only like an honorable thing to do, and something that regardless of what happens, we're gonna have to leave the planet at some point. And but at the same time, it is something that we can be an example for other people, if nothing other than like our children and our the people that come after us, as being someone that did the honorable thing, that wasn't,
But everybody's a hero
blocked
in
into
their
it.
own story. Everybody thinks
Yeah.
that they're doing the honorable thing. Both sides of this equation think that they're doing the right thing, the honorable thing, and that the other
Well, maybe
side.
honorable is not the right word, but
Well, no, I mean it's true, but everybody is a hero in their own story. But I think the key
up
thing
until they ain't.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the gist is that it's a story. And, if you recognize that we are all part of that big story, and yet we also all have our own pen and we're writing our own story, and how we write our own story is influencing the collective story writing and the narrative that we're living in. That on one hand, it brings responsibility. It brings up responsibility for yourself and for the world that you're living in, and it also it reminds me of the potential that I have. Even if they want me to perceive myself as this little tiny thing that's just in the big machine and doesn't really make a difference, but no, that in itself is a form of program as well. But because you might on a physical level you might be tiny compared to everybody else, but then if you look at the potential that really lies within each and every one of these small tiny corns of sand, or whatever we want to compare it to, then it's amazing that we could be a major impact on the world that we live in. And even if it's just on the world as we perceive it, on our world, because we are the star, we're running the show in our life, in our world, and how we perceive the world. And if we step into, if we take on that role, then what will stop us? What can that which we really are, what can lock us down? The true self that we are, and that would really move us forward to the to maybe the highest, to the spiritual realms, and to the aspect of that which is, if the physical being that we are as well is really the least of who we are, who and what could ever lock down our true self, our true I amness, our true beingness? Can that be locked down? Is there anything that can change that can change the true nature of who we really are? Or is it really just our own perception that is being tricked into believing that we are small, that we are not, also a divine spark?
Don't do things well enough. No one has as much or more talent than I do. Everybody I know how to do everything I know how to do well. Everybody else can do better. All of these self-defeating statements keep rolling around in our mind. But when Mike was talking and then we started talking at the same time, what I was going to say is something very similar. He said about being. I think when you be, that's the key element, is there to be present in the present moment, to be present to the start, to be present to the glass of water that is almost done, to be present to life, to not hide under a blanket and pretend that you don't exist and eat potato chips until you turn into a blob.
It means to
Well, one of the
go ahead, man.
Go ahead, Dennis. No, go.
To me it means then also to accept, and because if I am in the moment and I perceive what's going on around me, then instead of resisting that this is what's happening and trying to I'm going against it, it's saying, okay, so I see that that's happening, that seems to be the flow of the time. How can I, and I am already part of that flow, so what is my role in that? How can I not be pushed underneath it, and how can I play a meaningful role? What does that mean for me holistically? What does that mean for me on a physical level, on an emotional level, on an intellectual, and on a spiritual level? How will I have to posture myself? How will I have to adjust myself? How will I have to change the way I talk to myself, I perceive myself, I talk to others, I interact with others, my emotions, like how do I have to learn to manage my emotions under this pressure? Because certainly the pressure is there, and the game has been upped to a different level. So that means also it's a challenge. Maybe it's a challenge to up our game also to another level, because certainly the more we are being pushed, the more things happen, like, what everybody's experiencing right now, right here, which is, a set of people come together and, they look at things from different angles, from different parts of the world and with different backgrounds, but yet, we can agree on many things. And it seems that the current situation actually is resulting in the establishment, or in the how would I say, in the energizing, or re-energizing communities and people, like-minded people getting together and actually thinking of alternative ways of recreating, the way how we live together on this planet. And certainly without that kind of pressure, the majority of us would just, go on like before, and kind of like, who said, was it Einstein who said, definition of insanity is to expect different results while continuing to doing the same thing. So obviously, this situation is unbalancing us and triggering us to do things differently. And I can only see and perceive how, even if the majority, goes on believing that, okay, we can just go on and we can just adhere and obey and it will all, pass, there is people, even if few, who are tremendously inspired to work even harder now, to create an alternative to the current system.
Along those lines, one of the things that Agnieszka and I and Gabriel are doing is essentially kind of creating a high trust organization between the three of us. Something I call the power of three in ethical emergence, but it is one in which we're taking advantage of kind of enhancing the relationship that we have between each other, and really becoming each other's advocate and working together on trying to solve, and create opportunities to solve our problems as quickly and as simply as possible. And to a large degree, I think, we're just scratching the surface on what's possible, because, if we're a group of three and we go into any other organization, already we have a great deal of stature, because nobody else knows how to do that. Nobody else knows how to get two other people to work with them and basically advocate for them at any
Not
time or any
nobody,
circumstance.
but it is a
Well,
lost art, pretty
yeah,
much.
and it is an awareness of something that very few people are practicing. And so by working together and collaborating and demonstrating how that works to other people, people see, wow, that's amazing that you can do that. And when they really see the output that we generate, they are going to be going, wow, I'd like to know a little bit more about that, because it seems like you guys are living over in the land of abundance of milk and honey, and I'm over here living in the dump, you know?
Zelma,
We
did
had
a
another.
comment. Yeah,
Oh,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Willow.
I was gonna say we have another comment. I just call her Dita, so I know it says Zelmar Dita, but Dita says, we are all part of the mega narrative. What we have to find is what is our truth, and live it be damned. I think that was in reference to what Dennis was talking about earlier, and I wholeheartedly agree. Like, I don't find anything to disagree with that.
And then the being part of that narrative, an interesting angle is if you can see yourself as being the one who writes the narrative, as being the hero or the heroine, as being the villain as well, and being all the other characters that are in that narrative, and even being the one that is reading the story afterwards as well. And if you even just for a moment can see yourself playing all those roles at the same time, then wow, what an exciting experience. And then what would be the gist out of it? Like, how would that make sense? We talked about senses so much the last week. So wow, that is the beingness, the all the everlasting beingness, like kind of wrapping itself into the limited form of the one who writes, of the one who is the villain, of the one who is the hero, of the one who's the little beggar on the street corner, and experiencing that narrative through all different kind of angles and perspectives at the same time. And wow, what a rich experience that is. And if I look at it from that view, it helps me to to take a step back, which is sometimes really how would you say, like rescuing or preventing me from going insane. Even under this current pressure, if you can just take a step back and say, okay, this is happening, that is happening, okay, I'm part of this to a certain degree, to a certain level, but there's also much more. And there's, something greater being at play right now. And as much as I enjoy or I'm under pressure sometimes to be part of that play, it is not only something that I am writing, but it's also something that has been written for me, and is something that is manifesting and coming forth through me. So just to let that happen and let that be, sometimes is also something that brings a lot of relief and helps to cope with circumstances as they are, and not to get too deeply involved, because obviously we are involved, but then again there's always this part of us, which is experiencing it, which can experience the experience that we have, the observer basically, that can that can stand above everything that is going on.
That reminds me of something I think there's a thing that says Bruce Lee's 7 ways to make the best life. The first one is to be proactive. And essentially in this situation, most people are being trained to be reactive. They're just waiting for the next thing to happen, the next stimulus to happen, so they can react to it. The opposite of that is to be proactive, to essentially just determine what your life is going to be, and just continue to work towards that regardless of what the circumstances are, and get to where you want to go, rather than just be reactive to the environment that's being created, because we do have the option to create the environment that's around us, to add to people's lives, to make people perceive us, or to influence the way people perceive us in a positive or negative light. We've got that ability. And if we take that on, being proactive, we can create an environment, a community, a lifestyle that is really pretty much impenetrable by people outside of it.
True. I feel
Willow hasn't said anything forever.
You had to ask me that right after I just got done answering a text.
Was it from one of our listeners? I'm sure.
No. It was not.
No, I feel what really is coming to my mind at this point is that whether we decide to open up or whether we decide to lock down, and I say we decide, so it is to empower ourselves and to stand in that power that, it's up to us, whether we open up in a capoeira game, whether I make an open game and invite people and it's all, fun and nice, or whether it's, something that's a little tougher where I will have to watch out, but where I'm also going to try to, play in a more objective way. And when it's here, it's not, I don't give anybody else the right to tell me when I'm allowed to leave my house or not, or stay inside, or what I'm going to wear. So that's a decision, that I make. So I stand in my power, and I have to bear the consequences as well, obviously. But I feel that, that should be my decision. I have the right to make that decision for myself, and even for my, for my children to a degree, as long as they're really young. But it's, if I stand in my power, then that means on a momentary basis, like in every moment, what do I open up myself to, and where do I close down myself? Where do I lock down myself? Which, sometimes is appropriate and totally necessary as well. If things coming your way, I think I was giving the example of the bottle, with the cap, that example that I used to teach the children, when to, close your mind and be in control of what people are trying to put into your mind, or the thoughts and the ideas, and when to open up, and to know when you open and when you close it. And that should really be up to ourselves. And we can take that power because it is within ourselves, and that's freedom right there. If you give that away to somebody else, that's up to you as well, your decision. And there's going to be certain entities and groups who will grasp for that and will take it as an excuse if you are not in control, of your opening and locking mechanism, if I can say that. Then they will happily say, oh, you're not using it, so we're using it for you, because you have not stepped into your power and are taking self-responsibility for your mind, for your emotions, for for your even physicality. So we're gonna do that, and we're gonna control it for you, and it's your fault in a way because you didn't take charge of it. So I feel I want to take charge of that, and I want to stand in my own power and decide when and whom I'm going to open up to, and when and to whom towards I will lock down and close down myself. And that is subject to change as well.
What I would say, and this is definitely something that we've learned in autonomy, is this idea of intellectual self-defense. I think for the most part, most of the population of the planet has very little intellectual self-defense, and it's because they've basically never been aware of it, never been aware that it's something that they need. And it's unfortunate, but that's what's tripping them up now, is they think that their security is like some kind of physical security, but it's their mind that's been compromised. It's their mind that's essentially telling them that there's some kind of danger when there's not really danger. And the necessity is to have this enough self-respect to have an intellectual self-defense. And so for those that are suffering, if you could just point them to the fact that this is something that they have not developed, that is essential to them understanding what's going on in the world. I think, for those that accept that and want to know more, those are the people that are going to succeed. And for those that choose not to, they're just going to be the fool that just continually is losing whatever game they're playing because they're always behind.
Yeah.
And it is their right to be in that role.
I guess
and to continue in
we're
that
about
role.
out of time at this point. I guess we are out of time at this point. I want to thank all of our
Right.
audience and the people that have been that watched the program for your time and attention. We certainly appreciate that. I hope this was very valuable. Let's just go around the room real quick. What did everybody bring out of this? What was really valuable?
Time, and you were like, "Oh my God, we got to end the show right now." It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. I liked comparing. I think that on Wednesday, when we go deeper into the power of the heart, it'll be even more interesting. Janice? Hello?
Just acknowledging the comments that are coming in right now. Shambhavi sending a big heart. Heather is there as well. She says she came late, but you can always, recatch the beginning of the show. Thank you for coming in, even if it's late. And yeah, to me, well, basically, I think my last words summed it up for me pretty well. It is, about to stand in my power and to realize that I came here to relieve this situation. So I'm taking self-responsibility for that as well, because to an extent, what if that manifests in my outside world, again, it must be a reflection of what's going on inside. So it is to work. It is my joy to work on all levels at the same time. So I would like to enjoy to get the gist and to get the lesson on a physical level, on an emotional level, on an intellectual level, and on a spiritual level as well, and proceed and advance on all those levels at the same time, acknowledging that these are the times, these are the challenges that are put ahead of us and ahead of myself. And so I pray that I find the right and appropriate ways of acting, of being proactive, and of taking the appropriate steps and measures for me to be able to take the lessons and to move forward and realize who I truly am, and continue to live through that and inspire others to do the same, while at the same time accepting that everyone else has the right and has the freedom to choose to stay where they are right now, to choose in a limited scarcity, fear state of mind and of being, or to really tap into well-being, holistic well-being on all levels, which is certainly a possibility that we have, even if we perceive it to be a little more difficult to tap into it, but it's there right here and right now. And if there's even just one being on this planet right here and right now that is totally liberated and that is living in full joy and in the full expression of all his potential right now and right here. And I feel there's at least one, then that means there is a possibility for that. And if you have the same potential within you than everybody else on this world, then what and who stops you from tapping into that right now?
Nice. Good ending.
Wow.
I think it's time to play the outro, isn't it?
Yes.
Mr. Shadow Host.
Yes. So with those words, thank you very much, everybody. Looking forward to Wednesday.